Hi, welcome to the channel Moyna Bass Fishes. I am Jim Moyna, professional bass angler. We are shooting this video from home base here in Minnesota. But this this video is going to be about the MLF Invitational tournament recently held on the Potomac River. This would be the year 2023 if you are seeing this 2,000 years into the future. Okay, so first of all, I ended up 12th place in the tournament. I started the first day, I had 16:10 and was in 10th. The next day, I weighed 14:3, which put me in 11th. And then the last day, I weighed 13:8, which put me down to 12th. So that's where I finished, was in 12th. So how did I catch them? Well, let's just start with my strategy and how it all laid out, and then we'll get into the rods. Historically, I've been there numerous times, and most of the time, most of my fishing is done around Mattawoman Creek. That's where I go. But this time, I wanted to try changing it up a little bit. So we get 3 days of practice. The first day of practice, I fished quite a bit down in the Potomac Creek area. A lot of it down there, pretty much the whole day down there. And I kind of struggled getting bites. However, the bites I got some really quality bites. If you would have took my best 5 that day, it would have been like an 18-pound bag, maybe something like that, which is pretty strong on the Potomac River. You can get 20-pound bag. For example, there was one 20-pound bag weighed in our tournament out of all 3 days, a couple 19s. So an 18 is real strong. So that was kind of interesting, but it was really hard to get those bites. So on day 2, I decided to hit up some of the familiar territory from the past around Mattawoman, and the grass changes every year. The way the grass grows, the density of it, the types of grasses, things kind of change. Like, some of my prime areas from years ago just aren't prime anymore because the grass isn't growing the same way at all. So that's why it's necessary to recheck some of that stuff when you go back when you go back again, like I did this year. So that day 2, I ran out and I caught a lot more fish, and I kind of felt like I could get a decent bag. I didn't catch the same average size fish I caught down in Potomac Creek, but I did catch I felt like my best 5 would have been 14 to 15 pounds, which ain't bad. Okay, it's not a bad weight. It keeps you in the hunt. That's what that weight does. And in fact, like 15 pounds a day that was basically what I had to finish in 12th place. I think I had like 44 pounds and some ounces. So that's that. So then the next day, the 3rd day of practice, I decided to run down to the Aquia Creek and fish in there. And oh no, it's not. It's sprinkling. Come on. So I fished Aquia Creek. I guess I better put these boxes away. Fished Aquia Creek, and I don't know. I kind of ran into a good number of fish actually. But by the end of the time fishing there, I felt like, yeah, that's another 14 or 15-pound bag out of there. So, which was no different than Mattawoman. So then I also did fish. I did come back and fish Mattawoman for like the last hour and a half on that 3rd practice day, and found a spot I never knew. So there I had it. That was my practice. That was my strategy, or that was at least where I was practicing. Dang it. Is this really going to frickin' sprinkle on me? It's sprinkling. Do I keep doing this video or not? Definitely got to get some of this stuff out of the rain anyhow. Um, it's been cloudy all day like this, and now it suddenly starts sprinkling. All right, so let's just continue. All right, so I really wasn't sure where I should go, but when it comes down to it, my history on Mattawoman, I just felt like I just feel more comfortable there because of many times I've been there, and that's where I've always fished. So again, that's where I fished on day one, was in Mattawoman Creek, and that's where I fished on day two, and that's where I fished on day three. So let's talk about the baits, okay? Um, there was basically one primary bait that pretty much weighed all my fish. Okay, it's not that I didn't have other things tied up. It's not that I didn't try other things. It just so happens that this one bait presentation caught them all. And that would have been a Nico rigged worm. Okay, so a Nico rig, if you're not familiar with it, is basically you take a hook and you center hook it. You can put an O-ring on there if you wish or not. I've got an O-ring on there, and then as you might be able to see, you insert a weight into the worm, so there's a little weight in there. Okay, I either use a 16th or 3/32, and I was using this color, which is a purple with green glitter, and I was using this color here, which is kind of a motor oil green pumpkin with purple and green flake. I would use the dark color when I was in a little dirtier water or in overcast skies. You know, when light visibility into the water column was somewhat limited, I'd go with the darker color. And then, like during falling tides, when waters would drain, when water would drain from areas with clear water, you'd end up with this really clear water. Then typically that's when I would switch over to motor oil green pumpkin looking type color. So that was my primary weapon. I did do a little bit of swimming with baits. So again, I was using the similar worm, just on a Texas rig. So, okay, for those of you who don't know what a Texas rig, I guess I won't get into it that much, but basically this hook point needs to be buried into the plastic. Okay, there's the Texas rig. It's not very straight. You want to rig that on there straight as you can. I just didn't really take more than a second there to worry about it. So that, or same thing, or I had a little heavier one here, and I caught fish on these. And again, that would be Texas rig with the hook buried in the worm. And this has got a different kind of swimming tail. So in practice, I caught fish on both of these items, and in the tournament, I think I weighed one fish on this, but it seemed like that Nico rig was just doing better for getting bites. So I ended up really relying on that heavily throughout the tournament. Here's another thing. Here's a top water that works in certain areas under similar conditions like this. It's just a prop bait, and you just throw it out there and twitch it across the top and throw it around the spatter dock and the pads and through the gaps and holes and some of this gapped out surfaced milfoil on that. So that's that top water. A frog's another one you can use, because there are places where a frog comes in handy, but I didn't have any frog bites there, so we put these away so they don't get wet. All right, so, and then I did lose, that's right, I did lose a big one flipping with this wasn't swimming it, I was flipping it. I lost a really big fish, probably the biggest fish. It was the biggest fish of the whole week. It definitely would have been a 2+ pound cull on day 2 with that fish. Fortunately, didn't get in the boat. So that was kind of what I did. And what kind of areas did I target? I targeted a variety of areas, and it depends on the tide as well. Like I had some spatter dock areas, and those typically I like doing on a falling tide. It seems like some of that spatter dock, some of that water just goes way back in there, and then when the tide falls, it'll filter out of there clear. And you get on the little breaks and little drops outside of areas like that, and at lower tides, the fish will stack up, and you can just see the weed line. They're like in some places you'll see like coontail coming out, just kind of carpeted along the bottom, maybe coming up a foot or two, and then there'll be a distinct edge. So at that low tide, I would just key on that edge and pick some fish off there. And then at higher tides, that's when I might use that top water or swim something through, actually right through the spatter dock. But I'm not a big high tide spatter dock guy. So during the high tides, I was looking more for other milfoil grass areas and that sort of place where I feel like they just live and they sit there. And I would just throw that Nico rig and that swimming worm and just try to pick off some fish at high tide doing that. So yeah, and then I might pick up a flipping stick too, and do a little bit of flipping with that in some of the spatter dock, but not too much. Just just getting around drops and that, and little current breaks and stuff like that is where I might flip some of that stuff. So that is the Potomac River wrap up. It was I love fishing there. It's a really fun fishery. It's old school tournament fishing, old school bass fishing, where you're finding the fish by actually fishing. It's electronics. Yeah, I wasn't keyed in on my electronics really at all, other than to get a depth reading and maybe get a look at some weeds. But it's just a lot of old school fishing, so that's a lot of fun. I love river fishing, and I love river fishing for that reason, because I like shallow water fishing a lot. I really do. So anyhow, that is the wrap up of the Potomac River tournament. I wish I could have got this out a little sooner, but I had some things I had to do. Mainly I had to drive my ass back to Minnesota immediately so I could show up in time for a day of practice and then practice a tournament here as well, which I'll be putting a video out on that tournament soon. All right, so guys, thanks for watching. I know a lot of you guys sent comments my way, wishing me luck and so forth. Thank you so much for that. I tried to address the comments. This time I wasn't. It was too hectic with the extended daylight hours. I end up utilizing all that time fishing, and there's just not much when you get back to the camper and you eat and dress some equipment needs, and maybe put out a new video. It's pretty soon. It's like 11 o'clock, and the alarm is set for 4:07 the next day, and there you have it. So, so a final note on the Potomac River in regards to snakeheads. I've reading some of the literature that the Maryland Department of Natural Resources puts out, and then I don't know maybe it wasn't them. I don't know who puts it out, but it's some official government agency, warning us about the snakeheads, and the fact that they're invasive species and they're going to overrun the fisheries. I don't know about all that, but who knows? Maybe that's true. But there is something I do know, Because one thing you read is that they can actually crawl out of one water body and crawl across land into another. I've read that multiple times over the years in published, published information, pamphlets or whatever regarding the snakehead and the prevention of their spread. So the worry is that they, they'll decimate the fishery. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. And the other thing is they can go from one fishery, crawl across land, and infest another. That, to me, seems so incredibly improbable and not likely, and as I call BS on that. And here's why. Every snakehead I caught this time around, I would drag it up onto the back deck of my boat, and that's where I would unhook it. I wasn't hand grabbing it. I wasn't handling it. I'd drag it up onto the deck, and there it would squirm. It would wobble back and forth and then sit there and gasp for air and then wobble some more. At no time did it have any instance or give any clue that it was about to just crawl across my boat carpet and back into the lake. There was no hint that it was capable of doing that. So that's one bit of evidence. Now here's another bit of evidence. So on day one of the tournament, it was like dead. We had an extra low tide, because not all low tides are the same level of low tideness due to various wind directions out in the ocean and full moon, half moon, whatever. So anyways, we're at kind of an extra low tide, and I was idling past this low marshy drain, and right in the center of this drain, which was completely drained, completely dry, was a snakehead fish, probably like a 4 to 5 pounder, about this long. And I was looking at him. I'm like, yeah, he's alive. And then he would wobble a little bit, and then he'd lay there, and then he'd wobble some more. He wasn't crawling anywhere. He was not like, hey, this really sucks. I'm like high and dry. I better crawl my ass back into the Potomac River. No, he was high and dry, wobbling and flopping and not going anywhere. That fish was not crawling across land looking for greener pastures, by no means. So I don't know where they get this idea. Now, perhaps when they're this long, maybe when they're this long, they crawl around. I don't know. But a regular adult ain't going anywhere. That's a fact by my own personal observation. So with that, over.